pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger roll, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight down speed off. Bring in, speed off. Off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks, you know the drill. It's time for another launch here live from Cape Canaveral. Let me know if you can hear me, John Galloway for NASASpaceflight here, and let me know if you can see a little bit different view of the Falcon 9 rocket over there out at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. Again, we're standing by for a launch of a SpaceX Falcon 9 with some Starlink satellites on board today. But NASA Spaceflight here, little bit different coverage today. We'll talk about that in just a second, but still here to bring you the launch live from the Cape. I see a ton of 5x5s in chat, so it looks like everything is going correctly. And let's go through and start introducing the rest of the team that's going to be on the show with us today. Again, we're coming up here about 45 minutes before launch, and the people who will be chatting with us include Adrian. Adrian Beale, how you doing today?
Doing great. I'm glad to be here for the first launch of 2022.
All right, Adrian is one of the writers. You hear his name on the scene all the time. So thank you so much for joining us. Also, we should have with us today Julia Bergeron, I believe, is out there in the field. Julia, how are you doing?
Hello there, Das. I am doing well, and like Adrian said, welcome to the first launch of 2022, and it's a beautiful day here on the Space Coast.
All right, Julia's actually going to be joining us from Titusville. She's out in the field, but she'll be doing some commentary and Q&A. Our resident photographer, fleet expert with NASA Spaceflight, also out in the field today at a little bit different location. We've got Chris Gebhardt. Let's talk really slowly and let him unmute his mic. Chris, how you doing?
I am doing well. How are you, Das? Good afternoon from a slightly different location.
All right. Chris Gebhardt, of course, the assistant managing editor for NASA Spaceflight. He's actually operating this camera for us today and has rolled out with the broadcast pack and camera to help share these live views with us. And then also another cool thing, back in the studio, we have with us Mr. Matt Anderson. Matt, how are you doing today, dude?
I'm doing really good. I just want to see this rocket launch. I'm very, very excited.
Well, I hope in about 45 minutes right now, we get to see that happen. And a special shout out for Matt today, y'all. A lot of times you hear Das or Michael are behind the scenes pushing the buttons and pulling the switches to make the stream happen. Today, Matt is actually in the director's chair, and he'll be pushing the buttons and pulling the levers, or maybe
there's only two buttons today, but there is a big red one they told me not to touch. I can't promise I won't.
Please don't touch the big red button unless this tripod burns down, falls over, and sinks into the swamp. Then you can press the big red button, okay? But a big thanks to Matt there operating the stream for us today. Hopefully we see more of Matt coming through. Did I miss anybody who's on the broadcast? Of course, Michael's always behind the scenes. He's always around helping out with stuff. A bunch of the cool tech we use behind the scenes is Michael. Don't know if we'll have him on comms. And also out there today, down around Cocoa Beach, we've got Stephen Marr. He'll be taking some pictures, so make sure that you're looking on Twitter and stuff like that after launch, because this is a southern trajectory that may go right past Stephen Marr down there today. Don't have a live feed from him, but we may get some cool shots as that rocket goes by.
Well,
now,
hopefully if it lifts off, it's not a might go by him, Das, right?
Might go by, right. Will go by if it lifts off. But it's a little bit different today, right? This is a different view than you've normally seen on NASA Spaceflight. We're clearly not on the press causeway today. And then I mentioned Julia's over at Titusville. Steve is down at Cocoa, down on the beach that way. But we're not actually broadcasting from KSC today. As it turns out, there was not a lot of media access for the launch today. Chris, wasn't that a thing we were dealing with here?
Yeah, that's correct. SpaceX opted not to, just for this one, opted not to have a media event because of how close it was to the beginning of the year and things like that. The 45th Space Wing was unable to accommodate media because people are still on leave for the beginning of year holiday. Unfortunately, NASA outright refused the accreditation request when asked for it. So that is why we are not on Kennedy Space Center property, but are instead the same distance away, just to the north of the pad instead of to the east of the pad. So normally at the press site, we're 5 kilometers or 3 miles from the launch pad, and we are 5.2 kilometers, 3.1 miles away from the launch pad at this location. So same distance, same everything, just unfortunately not that iconic 39A shot that you'd think a multi-user spaceport would want to broadcast, but
I think this will become iconic in its own way.
Hopefully it will, yes. It's still
There
the
you go.
iconic 39A, yes, so that works.
It's interesting because this is actually a public viewing site. We get people who ask questions all the time like, hey, I'm going to go by to the Cape. Where can I watch a launch from? And we lucked out today because this is actually from Playa Linda State Park. This is a public area, and it does tend to get very crowded for launches, which is one of the things we're looking out for today. Chris is actually in a public spot, like members of the public are walking behind him. If you see the tripod shake sometimes, that's the wooden walkway that he's on shaking when people walk up the stairs.
Well, and in fact, I had to dive for the mute button right as we went live because someone came up to ask a question about the launch and everything. But that's part of the fun of being at a public location. I'm actually standing by someone who watches us all the time. So now he gets to watch how it happens in real life.
Excellent.
Behind
So,
the scenes, yeah.
an interesting thing there, like people that are asking, how can I experience a launch if I'm at the Cape? Playa Linda is sometimes an option for members of the public. You don't need a special pass or anything like that. You don't have to, well, there's entry into the state park, like you drive and you pay per vehicle to drive in, $10, right? Like a day pass to the park. But this is an option for members of the public to actually watch launches. And that's where we've rolled out to today so that even though we weren't actually over on the Space Center, we still had the live camera and could share the launch with y'all. So, anywho, it's a normal commentated stream here, coming up on T-minus 40 minutes. As we do with the NASA Spaceflight broadcast, we tend to do some Q&A, and we also see some super chats coming in. So, in just a second here, we'll start answering your questions live as we do. And before we do that, I'm going to say thank you to a couple super chats. So, hey, Jay Gunpla, thank you so much, saying greetings from snowy East Tennessee. Hope you're staying safe out there, Jay. Thank you so much for the support. And then Michael Kramrat became a launch director member. That's the membership program here on YouTube. Thank you so much for that support, that monthly membership program that helps us sort of have a little bit of a steady income so we can continue to do this, as opposed to the super chats that ebb and flow like the days of our lives or something like that. I don't know. NASA fan NASA. Thank you so much, NASA fan NASA, for the support, the super chat there. And then Jim Cavett says, thanks, y'all, looking good. We appreciate the support there. Jim using one of those little emotes, I think is what it was going to come through. But again,
so just because you made the reference, I now have to say it. Like rockets from a launch pad, these are the days of our lives.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
You're welcome. Everyone can groan. We've had the first dad joke of the year. Moving on.
I opened the door to that, so that one's my fault. Oh, and Stephen Marr says East Tennessee, his old stomping grounds. Nice. Apparently Stephen is out from that area. So again, y'all, across the board there. Oh, Rough Riders as well. Thank y'all so much for the support. Rough Rider saying, thank you, Chris G, for making the big journey. Oh, for James Webb. That's right. Chris, you made it home safely.
I'm home safely, yes. Home safely for a very different rocket launch. But yes, it was a privilege and an honor to be able to go to the launch of the James Webb Telescope. Very happy all the deployments are going as well as they are. Very, very incredible work. But yeah, wonderful to have been there and to have helped brought that to the world.
Absolutely. That was really cool, Chris.
After the Guyana launch, we all just decided we needed more foliage in our lives for these.
Right? I mean, like, it's Falcon 9 doing its best jungle impression, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, let's start grabbing some questions here. I think we have a couple questions that have already come in. As always, if you got a question for us, tag us in chat at NASASpaceflight. Goes into some cool software that Michael has written, and we try to answer as many mission-specific questions as we can. But Adrian, do we have some questions here we want to start going through?
We have some. Should I start, or do you want to?
Hey, you want to ask some questions? Go for it.
Okay, so the first question we have is from Lego Flight Cams, who asks, what do you guys think will be the fate of this landing, similar to 1069, or a better outcome?
This is referring to the slightly crumpled landing that 1069 did the other day. I would answer it this way. Landing anomalies are rare, considering the number of times they do these. So I would tend to think of that as the 1069 anomaly as an out of family experience that probably will not be replicated again. We've seen them really well hone in on these sort of, when landing anomalies happen, hone in on them very quickly and prevent the same thing from happening again. So
Yeah.
I'd say this one will most likely fare a lot better, and you're always going to have that random hiccup one, sort of because of the overall design of the Falcon 9, which
Yeah,
is part of
look
what they're looking to fix with the Starship variant.
and
We
look at
see a
this real
dragon.
quick. Yeah. Speaking of things returning to port, that booster came in a little bit crooked. Right
yeah.
now, it looks like one of the recovery ships is coming in from doing some practice with a Dragon capsule.
I was to
That's
say, did they
over there.
catch a dragon?
They did. They caught a
Not-
dragon. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, not surprising, because we are under 2 months away from the Axiom 1 crew launch, which is the next human flight from here on the last day of February currently. So not surprising that they would be practicing their emergency recovery operations a couple months before a crew launch like that.
All right.
Yeah, I
that
think we
is
saw
actually.
them.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we saw them yesterday as well. If you watch Fleet Cam, they from time to time do some cool swimming tests in the area that we can see with Fleet Cam, and I think we saw them yesterday as well, training with that particular Dragon capsule and getting ready for that mission.
Yeah, that's actually Go Navigator there, based at Port Canaveral, and we see them. There's actually people riding those Dragon capsules around the port turning basin sometimes. They'll take it out and they dip it into the water, and then they have the fast boats go, and they do all sorts of practice and training, either there in the port or out in the ocean just off the coast there. But Go Navigator coming back in over there on Fleet Cam. If you don't know what Fleet Cam is, this is our 24/7 camera situated over at Port Canaveral, courtesy of Rusty's Seafood and Oyster Bar. There's actually a separate live stream that's up 24/7, and you can watch what's going on. Boosters coming in, getting processed, training with Dragon capsules like this mock-up that they've got there on Navigator. That stream is up 24/7. So massive thanks to Rusty's, if I could find them in the list somewhere. I'm almost positive. Nope. Anyways, massive thanks to Rusty's for letting us run that 24/7 camera out at Port Canaveral. But we're coming up on T-minus 35 minutes here, so let's get a couple of questions on the Starlink mission that's happening today.
Yes, I can start again with the question. So the Ross Patrick asked, "I'm late to the stream. What booster is being used for this flight?"
Ah, yes. Alrighty. So this, my friend, is booster 1062-4. So this is the booster that launched the GPS-3 SV04 and SV05 missions in November and June of 2020 and 2021 respectively. It then launched the Inspiration 4 crew on their way for their historic mission in September, and now it is here for Starlink 4-5. It's been 112 days since this particular booster flew. So that is the booster supporting today's mission.
Gotcha. And also a question that comes up quite a lot, so I'm just picking one here. G-Trains asks, why is this Starlink going towards the southeast instead of going northeast?
Because SpaceX likes to show off, is kind of the answer to this. So yeah, this is going southeast toward the Bahamas, and we don't overfly land when we fly out of the United States. When the first stage debris impact zone could endanger land, we do fly over land during second stage flight. We have flown over the Baja California Peninsula with the Falcon 9. We have flown over Cuba with the Falcon 9 before, as they have headed south out of here and out of Vandenberg. But today is basically, they are trying to get into Shell 4. And each day at your launch site, you have one orbital track. So the same orbit, right, the same plane, will cross you going from southwest to northeast. And then about 6 hours later, it will cross you again going northwest to southeast. And technically, if your range of available launch trajectories out of a launch site allows, you can just select whether you want to pick the northeast one to launch into that day or the southeast one to launch into. Out of Florida, the southeast one for inclinations of the 53-degree range that we're looking for today are somewhat problematic because of the Bahamas, but you can just put a couple fewer Starlink satellites on board and have the first and second stages do their dogleg maneuvers, and you can launch southeast toward the Bahamas. So instead of launching at an ungodly hour, they chose a more reasonable hour, and that results in a southerly launch trajectory out toward the Bahamas.
Chris just casually answering a second question was about to ask, because people were wondering why there are only 49 satellites on this mission. So you just basically did that with the same question.
You're welcome. It's basically, yes, the slightly different answer for that one is you have to burn more propellant. There is an expense in the propellant that you use to do that dogleg maneuver, and the excess propellant that you need results in a lighter payload mass that you can take to that orbit if you have to do a dogleg maneuver.
And you know what, Chris?
What, Julia?
You know how I can tell that they're using more propellant? Because they are south of Miami and even farther east of the smaller islands of the Bahamas. So the fleet is way out there for this landing.
Yeah, I mean, they really, really are. I'm opening up Gavin's latest tweet from that, and yeah, if you look at Gavin's tweet, which is embedded in our article on site, you can see where the drone ship is, and you can see how that trajectory, I mean, just barely keeps to the north of the northernmost Bahamian islands there.
Isn't this speaking of Julia there, isn't this the launch that has a sort of extended safety zone because of the trajectory it's going through?
That is also correct, yeah.
Yeah. So I can tell you that the Coast Guard is definitely out there at the boat ramps. They were out there 3 hours before launch letting boaters know that basically Port Canaveral is closed and the waters to the south are also in that hazard zone. So what they're looking for is no wayward boats today, and the Coast Guard is definitely out in force patrolling that.
And the airspace closure notices as well are likewise different because of the trajectory that we are taking. The 45th has also been very active at the local airports, especially those tourist ones, to try to prevent what happened the last time we went south out of here on a Falcon 9, where we got to about T-minus 45 seconds and a tourist helicopter went up into the air and straight into the exclusion zone. So we're trying to avoid that again today.
I have always known Floridians to be very rule-abiding.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think
the natives
Matt,
will just say sure and move on.
move on. Real quick, Matt, I think you should have a copy of that safety zone from my feed. If you want to bring that real quick, we can just show the extended safety zone there. It's unofficial.
Yeah, because you can see how it sort of like blobs out differently to the south that we're not normally used to. That red one is the exclusion zones that we're really used to, because those are the ones we use for going due east and northeast out of the Cape as well.
Yep.
It's that yellow one that's the new one, and you can see how close to shore it is for a very long time there.
Yeah, and that's sorry, I just resized it apparently, my bad. That's different because this is actually shutting down the inbound and outbound flow from the port, like we were saying.
Yes, it is.
That's why the Coast Guard is there actually at the boat ramps and stuff, letting people know that they can't launch because there is a safety zone. They can't actually exit the port there because of this launch in the southerly trajectory out of southeasterly trajectory out of 39A today. So
and it affects Cape Canaveral Space Force Station as well, because large chunks of the land part of the Cape have to be closed as well.
Cool. All right. So again, folks, we're coming up on T-minus 28 minutes, just under 30 minutes now before the launch of the rocket. We've got Chris, who is over at Playa Linda Beach. He's got the live feed for us, so we should be able to see this rocket go if it takes off. There it is right there. And we are doing our normal Q&A commentary like we do here on the NASA Spaceflight channel. Really quickly, I'm going to run a couple super chats. One good Ferb, something about orange juice. I don't know. Thank you so much for the support. We've got Jason Russell as well. Greetings and a huge thanks from Orlando, Florida. Appreciate you, Jason. Taylor Van Camp. says, booked an Airbnb in Cape Canaveral in March. What are some awesome space military attractions I should go look at? First time to KSC. Also, Happy New Year. Who wants to do the quick tourist suggestions
That'll be
for
fun.
Cape Canaveral?
Julia, I believe that's all you.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Well, of course, you have to go to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center, but don't forget the little things. There are other smaller museums like the American Space Museum in Titusville. There is also the Air Force Space Museum just outside the south gate of Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and that one is free. Don't forget to visit our partner Rusty's in the port if you like gator tacos. On the weekend, you've got Exploration Tower, gives you a great view of the port. And if you want more suggestions, feel free to DM me on Twitter.
If there's a point where I will go to the Cape, I will so ask Julia to basically make me a plan of cool things I should visit in 2 weeks.
Well, I think Gavin was happy. We kept him pretty busy when he was here.
Oh, that's right.
What?
Gavin came through for a while, didn't he?
Yeah.
He was, yeah.
Excellent. Let me get a couple more of the super chats here. Again, y'all, we're able to do this and roll out the packs and stuff like that to bring in the live feeds because of y'all's support. So thank you so much for these. We've got Brett Person with the launch director joining the monthly membership program there. NASA Fan NASA, a little bit of a question. We've been talking about this some, so I'll cover it for you there, NASA Fan NASA. This one's going out to the southeast today. So from Chris's perspective, it's going to sort of launch and then start to lean away from him and go out to see away from him from this perspective. It's actually going to be passing Fleet Cam. So Fleet Cam is south of where the rocket is, but this trajectory today is going out sort of southeast. We've got Lucas here saying, Starlink launched on my birthday. Yeah, greetings from Hamburg, Germany. Lucas, happy birthday
Nice. Happy
to
birthday.
you. Yeah. And this is a serious candle to get lit on your birthday. Happy birthday there. James Atkinson is very concerned here. It says, from this angle, we can't see the 4 towers. Where are they?
Oh no.
Oh, well, I can help you out. This one doesn't have 4 launch towers. This one doesn't have 4 towers. It has 1. The 4 are actually behind it. From what we're thinking. But yeah, 39A only has a single lightning mast, and it is what you see protruding from the top of the fixed server structure. Pads can either have none, 1, 2, 3, 4 is sort of the general configuration down here. 39A, it's just the holdover lightning mast from the shuttle in the Apollo eras. There was no need to change it, so they didn't. But pad 39B has 3. The Delta 4 pad has 2, and the Atlas and the Falcon 9 pad on the Cape side have 4 each. So just different ways of doing your lightning protection.
Yeah, and Matt, if you hop back over,
the standard joke.
yeah, if you hop back over to that feed I was pushing real quick, you can actually see the 4 towers in the background there, in the back of the shot.
Oh yeah.
There are the 4 towers. They're just behind the tree there at the other site, further away than 39A. So those towers are not for this launch complex, but they're there, just in the background a little bit. You probably didn't notice them because the rocket's there for and center, but there are 4 towers in the shot. Very
of course
cool.
We have that one
that
shot
question. Go ahead. Sorry.
Of course, we have that one shot that shows 39A and also the 4 towers. Like, that's very on brand.
What was the question, Matt?
I was just going to say, they were probably not expecting a detailed answer like that.
They probably weren't, no. Welcome to a NASA spaceflight stream.
Oh, nice. Let's see here. Have a couple more super chats here. We're also coming up on T-minus 24 minutes, and we can see the rocket is starting to get a little frosty there. A little bit tough from this angle, but there is some venting sort of cascading down the side of the rocket. Micah Wood, thank you for becoming a Capcom member. We appreciate the support there. Westy the Third, happy first launch, everyone. First launch of the year here from the Cape for the United States. How many of those statements I just made are accurate?
It's the
All of
first
them?
global launch.
Well, like just across the
Yeah.
board?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, there you go. First launch of the year. Westy the Third, thank you so much for the support. Henry Jensen is a launch director member as well. The membership program really does help us out, y'all. So thank you so much for signing up there. Yeah. TJ Smith says, are there any SpaceX launches from mid to end of March at the Cape? You're on holiday in Florida. You never saw one a few years ago. Oh, you nearly saw one a few years ago, but it aborted at the last second. Always wanted to see a launch.
Oh man, was that by chance? I think that was also coincidentally in March of 1 year is when we aborted on the pad, like 1 millisecond before liftoff. It was really like the last possible moment they could have stopped it, and the systems did. Current Falcon 9 manifest for March. There's a Falcon Heavy on the manifest for the first quarter of the year, so that could be March. You are almost certain to get Starlinks in around that era and time as well. The crew missions are right now in February and April, so none of them, but either a Heavy or a Starlink. If you can luck out with the Heavy, if USSF, oh man, I started that, USSF 44. If it stays to the first quarter, you might have a shot at that in March. Other than that, Starlinks would be your best bet.
I'm not even sure. Transporter 4 might be in that area as well. So
it could. The manifest kind of gets a bit nebulous, doesn't it? A couple months out.
yeah.
So tough to do launch tourism that far in advance, especially coming from overseas, because the schedule is so fluid. But the cool thing is there are so many launches getting scheduled that you're getting to have like a little bit better chance of seeing something just because there's so many launches happening, right?
And technically we would be remiss if we did not mention that the current schedule has SLS in March, but I would not be holding my breath for that.
There you go. Hey, here's another one. We'll get to some questions here as well. Jirwa says, when das LC39A bot? Jirwa, it is not a technical limitation. Simply say the word, and I can make cameras appear at places. But thank you so much for the support there. Magic Skates, did I hear Gator Tacos? That's what you said, right?
Oh, man.
Gator tacos are a thing. Yep.
I've never had a Gator Taco.
Have you
Oh,
not?
they're good.
No.
Yes.
All right.
You
next time
go
we're
for
down
the
to
fried
fixing
gator.
that. Yeah.
And you prepare it like a fish taco, but it's just fried gator.
Fried Gator Tacos. I will have
yeah.
to try that. We need to do like a NASA Spaceflight meetup at some point when we can do so. That'd be
Yes.
cool.
I'll bring my smoker.
Oh, you're okay. That
I'll do
works
some
too.
brisket.
There we go. Matt's
All
like
right.
Matt's like up in the game.
I love to cook.
Yeah.
I love it.
Matt's like, when we're meeting, we are doing something cool.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
feed everyone.
I got dessert.
But
You got dessert?
Nice.
But with that, I want to draw our attention to the rocket because our T-minus 20-minute vent should be occurring here momentarily.
There it is.
There it is.
And there it is. Yeah, so this is the indication that they have wrapped up RP-1 kerosene loading onto the second stage of the Falcon 9, and they are purging the transporter erector propellant lines with gaseous nitrogen to inert them and get the transporter erector and the propellant lines ready for the start of liquid oxygen loading to stage 2, which will commence at the T-minus 16-minute mark. Both RP-1 kerosene and liquid oxygen have been flowing into the first stage simultaneously since the T-minus 35-minute mark and will continue to load simultaneously until the final minutes of the countdown. If you are by any chance new to a Falcon 9 countdown, this is what's called the load and go fueling procedure. So fueling wraps up 2 minutes, 30 seconds prior to liftoff for the Falcon 9.
Right. And you can see that big plume there. The wind is blowing in a good direction where it's going off to one side, actually on the far side of the launch tower there. So
It
that
does
is a
indeed.
completely normal thing, y'all. When we see that, that means that everything is ticking along like it's supposed to be, as opposed to having an issue. If we didn't see that at T-minus 20, we would be a little bit concerned about the rocket launching when they say it's going to launch. But that is exactly what we want to see here in the T-minus 20-minute range. Adrian, we have some more questions we want to get?
Absolutely. I want to start with one question that probably some of the viewers know, but we maybe have some new ones here. So, Apocryphon asks, what are these 49 satellites going to do?
Yes. So these particular 49 Starlinks are part of the version 1.5 batch of Starlinks. They're a little bit upgraded from the version 1s. They're a little bit heavier. They have the laser interlink communication terminals and everything on them. But basically, they are going up into Starlink Shell 4. And there are 5 total Starlink shells. So they filled out the first one, which was the whole first series and salvo of launches. They threw a couple of them into shells, into some of the other polar shells. And then they've really been concentrating on Shell 4 because Shell 4 is very similar to Shell 1 in terms of they're in 53-degree inclination orbits, which means they provide coverage to most of the planet, especially their highly populated areas. So throwing them up and completing Shell 4 as quickly as possible is a large part of the Starlink business model because it will help reduce latency and the downtimes that users so far in Europe and North America and around the world at some of the different latitudes toward the equator have been experiencing as the first round of Starlinks get up into their operation altitudes. So they're basically internet satellites, and if you've been around for a long time, the joke is that we call Starlink missions Go Internet Rocket Go at liftoff. So, but basically just helping provide more Starlinks for more connectivity around the world.
Gotcha. And also, everyday space nerds ask, could they put arms on this tower and catch Falcon 9 boosters with them?
Oh, don't give them ideas. I understand the basic part of the question. Answer is no, because of how the Falcon 9s are built. And there are some other ideas for where Starship pads might eventually end up here at the Kennedy Space Center. So, and they would be north of the existing 39A and 39B complexes here at the Cape. Kind of where I'm standing now, which...
Actually,
yes.
really close to where you're standing now.
Actually, yeah, I kind of looked around and I'm like, yeah, kind of really close to where I'm standing right now is where they'd end up being, yeah.
Out of Crappy Ice asks, are the fairings new for this flight? Happy New Year, NSF crew.
Yeah, the SpaceX website did not indicate that the payload fairings had been used on previous flights, so we do indeed believe that the fairings are new.
And also, Liam Robbins asking, is there a reason that they don't static fire roughly 1/10 of boosters before launch, since this one wasn't static fired, right?
Yeah, so the logic behind static fires has sort of become they don't do them for internal missions anymore unless it's like a fleet leader booster, like one that's flying for the first time for the 12th or 11th time and things like that. But for the lower number boosters, like this one's on its 4th flight, having previously launched 2 GPS missions and Inspiration 4, there's not really a need that SpaceX feels internally to static fire them and go through that entire process. So they don't, but they still do a lot for customer missions and especially for NASA and crew flights.
Gotcha. Also a question here about the launch. Why do they use water for sound suppression?
Well, it's cheap and it's good.
It has mass and it can boil, basically.
I mean, waters are really interesting, like non-conductor of sound, like dampening force of sound because of how, because you can translate that energy to steam and to heat that the pads and everything are capable of withstanding. So, water.
Basically, just put water in the way, and instead of the full force of the rocket hitting the concrete and the steel structures of the pad, to get to the structures, it actually has to boil off that water first. And the fact of like the energy that it takes to actually flash that water into steam and push it out of the way, because it's physical mass as well, helps dampen that force so that it doesn't hit the pad. The other cool thing that the water does is it keeps some of that energy coming out of the rocket from reflecting back at the rocket. So if you try to launch a rocket from just a flat piece of ground, Starbase, you can actually get a lot of force reflecting off that flat ground and coming right back at you.
Yeah, let's just very quickly, I won't harp on it, but if you want to see how bad that can actually be, STS-1 and the launch of Columbia for the very first time, they didn't have a big enough sound suppression system, and she almost didn't make it back. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So the water is definitely like the pad structure, the water. You've heard Elon say how difficult it is to create stage 0. And here at the Cape, SpaceX has actually got a leg up because the stage 0 that they're using is in large part existent from all the way back to the Apollo era. I mean, Saturn V's launched from here, shuttles launched from here. Talking about dealing with sound dampening and pad structures and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of experience that this Falcon 9 is sitting on top of that SpaceX was able to run with here.
And to basically put it into perspective, the Falcon 9 does about 1.5 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. The Falcon Heavy does 5, and the SLS will do 8. And I mention SLS because the 2 pads here, 39A and 39B, are built to withstand vehicles that can produce up to 18 million pounds of thrust. They could easily handle Starship. But we're just going to build new things for Starship, but they could easily handle Starship. One of the many good things von Braun built into this place was the ability to handle vehicles bigger than the Saturn V.
Yep. All right, we're coming up on 12 minutes. Actually, we just crossed over 13 minutes, it looks like, T-minus 13 minutes before the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket carrying Starlinks for SpaceX today from LC-39A down there at Cape Canaveral. Let's get a couple more questions here, Adrian. Let's see if we can't speed run some more before we get too close to T-minus 0 here.
Absolutely, we have some more. We have Jay Gunplow who asks, what type of window are we looking at for today's launch?
4:49 p.m. single second instantaneous, basically. There is a window, but they basically kind of said 4:49 is it, and if we don't make it, we'll have a backup opportunity tomorrow. But the window does technically extend for a couple of hours.
And also we have the question here, could you explain the dogleg maneuver?
Oh, yeah. So basically, because we can't fly on the exact trajectory, the direct trajectory that we would need to going southeast to get to a 52.3 degree or 53.2 degree inclination orbit, because the Bahamas are in the way, and we don't want to be dropping stages onto the Bahamas. The first stage will pitch as far south as it possibly can go, burn in that direction, and then as soon as it releases the second stage, instead of continuing on that same more or less straight line or azimuth that the first stage drops it off onto, will swivel its engine to change its direction of travel or azimuth, which will then, and basically it's a big fancy complex system of calculations that it swivels the engine in just the right way to get you onto the right trajectory, so that at the moment you reach engine cutoff and you're in your initial parking orbit, you have attained the proper orbital inclination.
Gotcha. And also we have the question, are they using different launch tables for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy? Is there any difference between the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy launch infrastructure?
Yes, to a certain extent. So there are additional cutouts in the launch stand, the thing that the Falcon 9 is actually bolted to at its base, and where the big T0 umbilicals come in to fuel the first stage of that rocket and hold it to the ground during the startup sequence of the engines before the hydraulics release the vehicle at T0. It's currently in its Falcon 9 configuration, which is 4 of those equally spaced around the base of the vehicle. But 2 of them are on the east-west side. But those 2 hold downs are where the side cores for the Falcon Heavy go. So instead of designing a completely new launch stand or table, SpaceX just made the current one reconfigurable. So you can take out those 2 side hold downs for the Falcon 9, and it just becomes a Falcon Heavy pad at that point. So you can actually reconfigure between a Falcon Heavy and a Falcon 9 in about a week.
That's pretty fast for a whole reconfiguration of a pad.
Yeah, now you can reconfigure it. You can't launch a Falcon 9 and a Falcon Heavy that close together off a 39A, but you can reconfigure the pad within 7 days to support the next one of a different variant like that.
Got it. Question by Will Woolley. How long do you estimate Falcon 9 to be in use before it is replaced by Starship?
That's a great question, and I think honestly it's one we can't definitively answer right now until we know how Starship's development process is coming. That would obviously be what SpaceX wants to get to, but there are realities of what the U.S. government currently allows and currently certifies. That's not to say they will not certify Starship at some point, but it is not certified to do a lot of these missions that you're seeing, not today's in particular, but it's not certified yet to do a lot of those other missions. Will it be? Almost certainly. It will get there, right? And that's when I think the conversations of how much longer does the Falcon fleet actually have become more what's the word I'm looking for here? Become more prominent.
Yeah, I think with especially with these long-running contracts for especially resupplying the ISS, you always have this situation where I think as long as it works, NASA is fine as long as it works, and maybe does not want to change the whole system right now again. And as the Falcon 9 is needed to bring Dragon up to the ISS right now, so that's one use it might have for many years.
Indeed.
Another question we have here is, where are the Starlink satellites produced? Hawthorne?
No,
know,
they
actually.
they are produced.
Uh-oh. Sounds like Chris just got unplugged or something.
Yeah.
Okay, you okay, Chris?
Okay, am I there? Hello.
Yes, we hear you
Yes.
now, yeah.
Okay, yep. Accidentally just ripped the cord out of the phone. That's all.
It sounded like it.
Yes. The Starlinks are produced in Seattle.
Question about an upcoming launch here. Is next week's Transporter 3 launch really a LZ-1 return?
I believe at present, yes, it is. I have not seen the final mass calculations for it though yet, but I believe it is. Yes.
I really like to see RTLS missions because they usually have very great camera angles. So yeah, looking forward to that.
And they have sonic booms.
Oh yeah, that's
Sonic booms are good.
Yes.
All right,
will
we just
SpaceX
crossed.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Adrian. Yeah.
One question by Ant the Fox. Will SpaceX enlarge the Falcon 9 fairing like what they plan to do with Falcon Heavy?
Yes, in fact, they have to for some of the USSF missions that they stand the ability to be awarded. They also need a vertical integration facility at 39A to be able to vertically integrate payloads per DoD requirements, Department of Defense requirements. So yeah, that expanded fairing is definitely something for Falcon Heavy, and not just for those DoD flights, but it is also needed to launch the power and propulsion element and the habitation module of the Lunar Gateway. So they very much need that extended fairing. Yep.
Another question here is, can there be more than one launch at the Kennedy Space Center at the same time? Like in theory, if you really need to launch at the same time?
Like at the exact same second? No, the range would not support that. However, you can support 2 Falcon 9s within about 9 hours of each other is what they have actually approved on the range. We never got there because of technical and weather issues, but that was technically approved at one time with one Falcon off of 39A and one off of 40 within about 9 hours of each other.
Hey, Chris.
Yes, Julia.
I have a feeling this question is inspired by Don't Look Up. And if you watch that launch sequence, no, that's not going to happen at all.
I'm betraying something I haven't seen, aren't I? Yes, I haven't seen that movie yet.
Okay, well, that's Chris's assignment, so he can then commentate on why that is not feasible.
Okay. Yeah, basically, we're not launching a salvo of missiles at an asteroid. Let me put it that way.
Not a thing, yes.
It's not
an internet rocket.
Yeah,
but could we?
I don't think
Question
so.
is could.
No. As of right now, no. The Cape cannot support 2 simultaneous launches like that. No, they cannot.
You were so worried whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think whether or not you should, Matt.
Yeah.
I mean, rockets go.
Rockets go.
Rockets
so
go.
y'all, we are now under 5 minutes. It's 4.5 minutes from the launch of this Falcon 9. We're watching at the Cape here. This is LC-39A, historic launch pad, now used by SpaceX at Kennedy Space Center. And you can see that rocket is frosty, that dense the humid Florida atmosphere boiling off the side of it there. All that's perfectly normal because that rocket is filled with super cold cryogenic propellants, and it is ready to go here. So coming up in just about 4 minutes, we will see if we don't get a fantastic launch. About here is about the time where we start to put a little bit of a pause on questions and super chats. I see a ton of super chats in the queue. Thank y'all so much for the support. I'll make sure that we get through those after the launch. The only reason we're able to do this is because of y'all's super chat and showing up to the streams and liking and subscribing or whatever it is kids are doing these days. Just however you support the channel here, thank you so much for doing it. And across the board, the super chats are awesome. The members are awesome. People that are members of L2 are sort of, not behind the scenes, our membership program that actually gets you all sorts of behind the scenes spaceflight info over on the forums in the NASA Spaceflight website. Or if you're not financially supporting, you're just watching the streams, you're sharing it with family, you've subbed to the channel, you tell people about it, however it is, there's lots of different ways that you can help us get the word out and share what's happening in spaceflight with everybody else around the world. So that's what we are here, the NASA spaceflight team, coming up on T-minus 3 minutes now. If this is the sort of commentary you like answering questions, make sure you follow the channel. Click the subscribe button, turn on the little bell notifications or whatever so that you never miss a launch or live stream. Also,
and DOS, I think with that, I am going to hop off comms and get ready to track this baby as she lifts off.
Sounds good, Chris. Good luck out there with the track.
See you on the other side.
See ya. We can also confirm now that the fairings are reused, because I'm pretty sure that's not a new fairing. They look like they were used before. So that question we got earlier, I think we can now say they are reused fairings.
All right. So a couple of technical things are going to start happening here, y'all. We do have a nice microphone out there with Chris. I want to say really quickly, Chris is in a public area, so we might expect some people talking, some oohs and ahs. Hopefully nobody shouts any curse words, but we are going to try to bring you some of this live audio of the rocket. But our microphone today is at a public location. We're going to be managing that. We'll be bringing that microphone up here probably about T-minus 30 seconds so that you can hear the roar of the rocket when it takes off. Also, look at that. Water tower's full. You know how you can tell? The water's spilling out of the top of it. Yeah, literally they fill it up and then water starts to rain out of the top of the thing, and that's how they know that it's go time. So 1 minute and 30 seconds now, the launch of the Falcon 9 out of the Cape.
There's the big vent.
Yep.
The 90 seconds vent before liftoff.
If I guessed, I would guess that this camera is a SpaceX camera up on top of the VAB, like the VAB.
It would fit from the angle, right?
Yeah,
which is cool. Like, that's a cool camera place.
I think so. This one, of course, is right there on the actual service tower, right next to the rocket, looking at the fairing.
Yeah. And there I think you can see the used marks on the fairing.
Yep. And let's hop over and see what Chris's view is going to look like. We'll get the microphones enabled, and we should hopefully see a launch here.
Countdowns, I don't know which one's right.
Again, a reminder, we may hear some audience chatter because this camera and microphone are at a public viewing location. Coming up on T-minus 20. There's T-minus 10.
I'm ready.
Good flight.
Ignition. Liftoff.
There it goes.
All right. And we have liftoff.
Where'd it go?
They're in the tower there.
Oh, I missed it. Wow.
Let's see how the audience reacts when the rumble gets there.
Wow.
That sound is incredible.
Yeah, it is. You get that the ripping of the atmosphere. It sounds like the atmosphere is tearing. It literally sounds like it's tearing.
I've seen a bunch of
And let's go ahead and cut the mic out there from the field. Again, that was a public location, so we heard the reaction of a couple people there at Playa Linda. watching the launch.
And
But
right
here-
now, this.
Go ahead, Adrian.
I was just about to say that this burn will last 2 minutes and 32 seconds before they will stop the burn of the 9 Merlin engines at the bottom of the first stage and then reignite the second stage. Just as an update.
Excellent. Did we see it on Fleet Cam at all?
No.
Okay. Just sort of little point of light went up there, I guess.
You can see now how the plume gets bigger as the atmospheric pressure is lowering. I love it. I always love to see that during rocket launches.
There's that shot from inside the inner stage coming up, and we should
We can
get...
actually. We
Go ahead.
see MVAC, right? That what we see here is Merlin vacuum, right?
Yep, looking up into the engine on the second stage there. And
Go.
there is separation.
And ignition. Yes.
We'll see the stiffening rings come off the Merlin vacuum engine there. That's a normal thing. Sometimes you'll see little pieces of ice going by as well. Fairing deploys coming up next.
That
There
worked
it
as well.
went. Yeah. That is the fairing that protects the Starlink satellites as they go through the atmosphere. Once they get into the thinner atmosphere, they don't need to carry that heavy... Well, they don't need to carry the fairing. It weighs something. It's not particularly too terribly heavy. But they don't need to carry that anymore because they don't need that atmospheric protection. And there you can see it sort of tumbling off behind the engine. So now we've got views from two different... I guess rockets, pieces of space equipment now. On the left-hand side, that's actually the booster. You can see those grid fins, and you'll see the firing of the cold gas thrusters as it begins to bring its ballistic trajectory back into the atmosphere to target that landing. And on the right-hand side, you can see that, of course, Merlin vacuum engine. That's on the second stage that's continuing to accelerate those Starlink satellites up into orbit so that when gravity pulls them back down to the Earth, they actually miss.
How hot is that bell?
I do not know. I wouldn't lick it, though.
I think you can even see now how the second stage, like if you look how it looked at the at Miko and look at now, you can see how it's pitching. If I see that correctly.
All
because
right.
of the dog-like.
It looked like we had a good first stage flight there, guys.
Yeah. How'd it sound, Chris?
Oh, it sounded great, and the fact that you could feel the boardwalk shaking up and down was awesome.
We got some audio from some families there that were enjoying it as well. It sounded like they were pretty enthusiastic.
A lot of families and people were here. Yes.
That's good though. That's so good that there's a lot of interest from the public.
It is a lot of oh wow, like people watching them for the first time and everything. Yes.
It also sounded like one particular child was not enjoying the sounds.
Well, you know.
It cuts
It's
through
loud.
you. If you've never been to a launch, it's hard to explain how much that noise just cuts through your very core.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's
Feel
true.
it. You don't just hear it. You feel the
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah, and the Falcon 9s aren't quite powerful enough to do it, but like the Falcon Heavies, some of the Atlas configurations, like you can feel the air rattling in your lungs during liftoffs sometimes.
Gah. All right, so not quite halfway to the entry burn yet, but that upper stage is going to continue accelerating those Starlink satellites. The booster returning down to the Earth is going to do a little bit of a burn here coming up in a few seconds, more than a few seconds, I'd guess, as it uses its engines to actually slow it down and protect itself from the heat of re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. So that's going to
Protect
be the
yourself from fire with fire. I love it.
fire. Like literally fight fire with fire.
That burn will come up in about 1 minute, by the way.
There you go. Thank you.
No problem. I have the timeline open. I'm not having this in my head.
And what I love about the velocity changes, right? Because I mean, like we keep talking about velocity, but you know, when we talk about this, it's so hard to comprehend. But right now, they're almost at 13,000 kilometers per hour, and we're going to end at 17 and a half ish, 27,500 ish kilometers an hour, and they have that much velocity to impart onto themselves in roughly the next 2.5 minutes. So a lot of the velocity to actually get you into orbit comes at the very end of your burn, when the stages are a lot lighter because they burned all their propellant, but they're still thrusting at the same engine level.
Pretty cool.
About 10 seconds to entry burn.
This is always the moment where, like, I know day launches are better for everyone's schedule, but man, you can see the entry burn at night from the launch site. It's so cool, but you can't see it during the day.
And there it is.
Awesome. So here she comes down towards the Bahamas.
And you can see the speed at the bottom left of the screen, how it decreases right now. And that's entry burn shutdown.
And I think I misspoke. I think it's roughly 25,000 kilometers per hour is what we're looking for.
So at this point, the next burn for the booster is the landing burn, just above. Is it? It's a shortfall of gravitas, right? And
I think Julia had to step off for a second. Yeah, Julia was going to upload some photos, but she's the one who would answer that, the resident fleet chaser out there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
and someone asked me a question. What was someone asked me a question here. What was the question on air?
It's a shortfall of gravitas, right?
Yes, is our drone ship today is ASOG. Yes.
Yes. Good.
You can
So
see the
we see a
second
clean
stage
landing.
nearly there to the end of its burn. Well, the first stage is only 4 kilometers in the air. Hold your breath. Here comes the landing burn, everyone.
It's very interesting how these events happen in a very quick succession to each other. Landing and then the shutdown of the second stage. There's the drone ship.
There's the drone ship.
All we need is for a booster to descend down into that view.
Almost.
I mean,
Oh, there she is.
that looks like our packs at Boca Chica. Skipping
Right?
forward and backward on the frame buffer.
That looks good.
And we have a booster on the drone ship. So that is
Good landing.
1064-5. Nice.
Excellent.
And we also
And
have second engine cutoff.
At 27,000 kilometers an hour. I remembered it correctly
I think
before.
stage
Yes. There we go. So, Adrian, I believe up next is just a brief coast before we deploy these 49 new internet satellites into their proper orbit, or into their initial orbit, I should say.
That's correct. It's a 7-minute coast until 1531, and there will the Starlink satellites be deployed. So that's coming up in only 7 minutes. 6 now.
Nice. And you can see the stage 1 marker out there at the Bahamas as stage 2 arcs down toward Hispaniola. A successful ascent to orbit for the Falcon 9. The first of, let's just say the number of planned missions is in the 40s. First of over 40 missions planned for this year with the Falcon family.
There you go. And again, y'all, sometimes we do bring in the SpaceX broadcast in addition to our own cameras. So we don't play the audio from the Spacecast broadcast. But I assume that what Jessie is saying here is how awesome NASASpaceflight is. And one day maybe she'll graduate to actually do commentary for us instead of SpaceX. And just continue to like and subscribe to the NASASpaceflight channel. I'm paraphrasing what she's probably saying here.
It's a really rigorous testing process to come and be a commentator here. DOS made sure that I had a pulse.
I think I'm going to make sure that
if I knew how OBS works.
Cam here for a second, since we're full screen on Jesse.
Yeah.
We do use that SpaceX broadcast for sort of a cover feed sometimes, but I do believe. I'm wondering. We're coming up on deploy. I'm not sure if we're going to see. No, they're not actually going to show deploy today. It looks like.
Are they just done?
They just cut to credits basically.
Interesting. Well, I have your favorite shot lined up, Das, if you're interested in it.
Do you? Am I interested?
Oh, yes.
Let's see here, my favorite shot. Is that even this? Oh, yeah, there you go. You were zoomed out a little bit. That's what I like to see on launch day, y'all. That is a launch pad.
Empty
Yep.
pad.
No rocket on it. because we just got to witness the launch of that Falcon 9 rocket on its way out to carry the Starlink satellites, 49 Starlink satellites today, all the way up to their shell, their deployment, like the orbits that those Starlink satellites need to be in to continue creating the internet constellation that those little Starlink dishy McDish faces
Faces, yeah. Which we can talk about that for just a brief second there, Das. So the Falcon 9's job today was to bring the 49 Starlink satellites into a 210 by 339 kilometer initial deployment orbit. And that's where they sort of reside as they get checked out, and then SpaceX will begin phasing some of them out to different planes to the left and the right of the plane that they launched into today. And then they'll slowly be raised up to their operational orbital altitude of 540 kilometers in the 53.2 degree inclination shell.
Excellent. Let's do this. Let's run through some of the super chats real quick. Chris, we have your camera for a minute here.
You do indeed. You have me for an hour.
Wow, an hour.
Well, when the beach closes.
Oh, okay. I was like, what? The joke is, y'all, a lot of times when Chris is being escorted as press over at Kennedy Space Center, the launch happens and like, all right, everybody pack up, it's time to leave. But today they weren't actually doing any press badging for launch coverage. And so Chris is over at that public viewing location, Playa Linda Beach, so we don't have to pack up the camera really quickly. Let me run through some super chats real quick. Mark Potachnik, I think. Thank you so much for the support. We appreciate you. Greg Smith says, leaving for a few weeks. Happy to have DOS on comms. Well, thank you, Greg. Appreciate the kind words there. Can't wait to see the progress at Starbase when I get home. We appreciate the support, Greg. Thank you so much for watching. Smooth Juice says, Happy New Year, Space Nerds and NSF team. So looking forward to Falcon Heavy. I'm going to make plans to come over for the launch. A lifetime opportunity until I get my calling at Starbase. Good luck there, Smooth Juice. We do have multiple Falcon Heavy launches potentially happening this year. So a couple different opportunities. Definitely difficult to come and travel to see it.
Psyche, come for Psyche.
I was like, what just happened? Did Chris just spring a flat? You were just hissing at me like a snake for a second.
I say aim for Psyche on the Falcon Heavy because that's the one that has the best chance of sticking to its interplanetary launch window.
Oh, that's a great tip, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Tom Hendrickson, thank you so much for becoming a Capcom member. We appreciate you there. Paul Sorensen as well, Capcom membership there. Andrew R. says, Data Fund, don't give it to Adrian.
Okay.
All right.
I guess so.
Cool. Thanks for the support there, Andrew. Roseanne DeVasto says, Happy New Year's with a couple emojis there. Thank you, Roseanne, for the support. Anka Gordea, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. Appreciate you there. I'm going to read through all these, y'all. Everest in Watts says, if SpaceX either loses or retires a Falcon 9 first stage booster, what facility helps make a new replacement booster for them? All the way out at Hawthorne where they build those boosters, right?
Indeed. And yeah, and like, yeah, that's where they build the new ones. Although it's not necessarily like if they lose one, they build another one. It's not necessarily that. They've got, they still have, they've got other options up their sleeve because there are a few boosters that haven't, there's at least one booster that hasn't been reconfigured from its Falcon Heavy side core days into a regular Falcon 9. But yeah.
Gotcha. Let's see here. I'm speedrunning here a little bit, I know. Has there ever been a second stage Falcon 9 failure? Have you ever heard anything? That's from Conservative Space Nerd.
Off the top of my head, the answer is a complicated yes/no. The second stage has never failed in flight, like as it was firing, but I do believe the CPOV issues were both contained within the second stages that lost the CRS-7 mission during first stage flight and lost the AMO-6 mission on the pad during the static fire. So, complicated answer. It has never failed in flight, but it has been the source of groundings.
Gotcha. All right.
Basically, when they've lit the Merlin engine on the second stage, it's done its job.
It's done its job. There you go. A good distinction there. Let's see. A couple of these are longer questions. James Atkinson asked, what New Year's resolution did the NSF team make? Anybody want to share any New Year's resolutions there? Chris?
I didn't make any.
Okay. All right.
So I'm boring.
Pending a certain pandemic situation, I really would love to see the US this year. So I guess that counts as a wish for 2020. Huh? Yes.
Gotcha. I'm gonna zoom in our fleet cam here so that we can have a look at. We could either choose the Pelican or we could choose the SpaceX ships back there. I guess I'll zoom in on the SpaceX ships. This is a SpaceX launch.
So no Pelican?
Yeah, no Pelican. We'll skip the Pelican for now. Matt, any resolutions?
Mine aren't working out too great. I had a fitness goal, and then I injured my back today doing deadlifts. So that serves me right, I think.
Oh, well, there you go. That's hope you're. I mean, feeling better. It just happened. It sounded like, right?
Yeah, no, it was a few hours ago. So I'm like slouched in my chair, trying to maintain a neutral position while operating cameras. I look very much like the WoW guy from South Park.
That's good.
Julia, if we still got you on comms, any New Year's resolutions for the first launch of the year? She may still be uploading. I'm not sure. There we go.
I honestly didn't make any this year. Nope, I didn't make any, but ironically, without making any, I've probably been exercising and eating better. So, yay for no resolution.
Yeah. I think if you're going to do something as a
Exactly.
resolution, you just start doing it. And you don't wait for the day. You just go on the day that you decide that's what you want to do.
There you go.
That's honestly kind of what I do, yeah, which is why I don't make them at New Year's, yeah.
All right. In terms of myself,
Goal.
we caught part of that, Julia. You're breaking up a little bit. It's like we could just fill in the blanks as to what your New Year's resolution was.
You can't fail if you didn't set a goal.
You can't fail if you didn't set a goal. There you go. It sounds like everybody's uploading their pictures now. So Julia's got a little bit of a hiccupy connection out there from Titusville. I didn't make any specific resolutions either. I want to keep on showing up and helping share these things with people and make sure that we continue to expand our coverage for NASA spaceflight throughout the rest of the year. But anyways, let's see here. Just a couple more super chats. I want to make sure we got everybody through here. Pelican Cam. Rough Rider says Pelican Cam. Nice. Here is a super chat from Tim W. that says for Adrian only. So
this
one
is
super
a
chat
weird
not for
trend
Adrian.
that is developing right now.
And then one for Adrian. So there we go. Apparently we've evened out. One yay and one nay. Scribboy saying at T plus 534 there was something at a much lower altitude flying across the sky. A plane. Sometimes you see stuff like that. I'm not going to try to go find that. If anybody scrolls around and sees it, maybe people can offer their opinions. But every now and then you'll see something, a piece of ice that's fallen off, soot and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what you're talking about there. But thank you for the support. We got Robbie Bradley.
5 minutes into flight, I'd say ice coming off the second stage. Yeah.
That stuff is nominal usually. Robbie Bradley here. Hey all, heading to the Space Center on the 21st for my birthday. My wife asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, visit Space Shuttle Atlantis. We'll be sure to say hi to it for Chris B. Nice.
Good man. Good man.
Well, happy birthday coming up on the 21st there. And if the wife is taking you to the Space Center for your birthday, sounds like a keeper. Thank you so much for the support, and happy impending birthday, I guess. Oh, geez. And here's one, one from Ghost Rider Ryan. It says, this can be for Adrian. I'll let Das decide. So half for Adrian and half not for Adrian. How's that?
This is a weird dynamic that is developing here.
Fair. And one last question here from Crafty Geek. Has any returning barge-landed Falcon 9 booster had lightning issues, or are oceanic lightning dynamics different? Or does ASOG have a lightning mast out of frame on the landing cam? That's a good question. I don't know if we've ever heard of a booster on a drone ship getting struck by lightning.
But I'm
We've
pretty sure
definitely
it
not-
does. Oh, sorry, Chris.
I was going to say we've definitely not heard of it happening. I mean, the risk, if it were to happen, would definitely be... would basically be nil. I mean, aside from the, like, you might fry the electronics in the rocket and lose the booster that way. But even so, rockets today can honestly be built to withstand lightning strikes. And it's a lot of a range requirement as to why we can't launch with our lightning rules. In all honesty, I'd say the Falcon would probably be fine if it got hit, because there's no propellant, there's no ignition source, there's nothing you'd be worried about going boom.
Yeah.
It's the electronics, and honestly, like, we can harden stuff against that now.
Yeah.
You've seen the Russian vehicles that have gotten struck by lightning as they've headed up and just been fine. So I would honestly go on the side of, I don't think they'd be massively affected if they got struck by lightning on the drone ships coming in.
Yeah, and we do know out on the drone ship, there's no lightning mast or anything like that on the drone ship. Like, when it lands, the Falcon 9 is the tallest part of the drone ship.
Yeah.
But we
Right.
haven't ever heard. We don't ever get live video 24/7 as they come all the way back in. So I'm not sure if one's ever been struck by lightning like that. Also, recovery zone weather is usually a thing, so they wouldn't land it through a lightning storm or anything like that. And it is something that they sort of look about. If there's a huge weather system coming in, they may or may not launch if they know that the booster is going to have to travel through a massive offshore system of some sort that may include lightning. Like, I don't know that the time it takes to get back and the time it takes weather systems to go through would really be a thing there, but probably, I don't know, not a huge deal if they get struck by lightning. That's a really good question. I don't think we've ever had that question before, right?
No. Say that again. I was being talked to. Sorry if that was directed at me.
No. I was just, I answered myself in my funny voice. I don't think we've ever heard of that, and I don't think we've ever had that question before. So, one last super chat here from Greg Dietz saying, start the Let Adrian Come to the U.S. Fund.
I think I have that handled. All good.
Here you go.
I think it's more a COVID thing at this point for you, right, Adrian?
Yeah, it's. I don't like this pandemic. In contrast to everyone who likes it, I guess. No, I don't like this pandemic. So
Yeah.
No,
it's COVID.
I mean, I'll say this. Like, I love to travel just in general, like in my personal life, not just for work. And that travel to South America did my mind so much good to get out of the house for the first time in 2 years.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Good deal. Well, I do believe here, y'all, mission's on its way. They weren't going to get confirmation per SpaceX until a while after the satellites actually deployed, just due to the way that the tracking stations, ground stations, and stuff like that worked. But we'll be watching the SpaceX Twitter for final confirmation that everything is good to go with that mission. But what we witnessed today is a launch of a Falcon 9 from Launch Complex 39A down there at the Cape. I believe we'll begin spooling down the feed here. We're just watching like sunset on Go Navigator at this point. But let's go ahead and run around the horn one more time and say thank you to everyone, including Chris Gebhardt, who's packing up his camera, it sounds like.
No, I just accidentally unplugged part of my phone and then dropped
There you go.
boardwalk. So, hello.
Okay. I'll go around the horn. I'll do you last, Chris. How's that? Get your phone back under control. Adrian Beal, thank you so much for joining us today. Adrian?
Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for watching. It was great fun.
You've heard Adrian on a couple of our different broadcasts, our resident spreadsheet expert down at Starbase. So Adrian joining us for commentary quite a bit. We really appreciate you having you as a member of the NASA Spaceflight team, Adrian.
Thank you a lot.
Also today, we've got Julia out there in the field. Julia's comms were a little rough. Julia, can you robot hello to us?
Hello, I think I'm back.
That actually worked out pretty well. Julia, thank you so much for joining us today, our resident fleet chaser and photographer. We appreciate you being out today.
It was a pleasure to be out. It was a beautiful day, and I've got the picture of my point of view up for everybody to enjoy.
Excellent. Also, we had out in the field Chris Gebhardt. Are you
I'm back.
control?
Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm under control again.
Crab didn't run off
yeah.
with your headset or something?
It didn't run off with the adapter, which I was thankful for. But how did you know there was a crab nearby? Like, yes, thank you everyone for joining us today for the first global launch of 2022. A nice success, so we think, for SpaceX, and we'll wait to hear when the satellites phone home from Kodiak, Alaska. But thank you so much. And I just have to say too, it was kind of nice being out with people. We were actually surrounded by a couple of our viewers who watch us all the time. So that was really nice to be out with everyone today.
Excellent. Y'all, Chris is, of course, the assistant managing editor out there, was running the NASA spaceflight camera from Playa Linda today. Chris, one more time, thank you so much for rolling out. We appreciate you.
My absolute pleasure.
Also, back in the studio, besides that happening, back in the studio today, pressing all the buttons, we had Mr. Matt Anderson. Matt, how'd it go?
I had so much fun. Sorry. Getting attacked by robots at the same time. That's my fault. So much fun pressing the buttons. I want to thank you guys a bunch for having me out. It was a lot of fun. Hoping I could sneak my way back onto more launches and NASA Spaceflight Live one of these days.
All right. Good friend from over on Twitch. He actually streams at twitch.tv/badnewsbaron on occasion. A long time, Matt has been a good friend of mine, and it's a pleasure having you on the NASA Spaceflight broadcast here. That's for sure, Matt. Thank you so much for helping out.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, also, y'all, in the field, we had Stephen Marr today. Stephen was out there getting some pictures. I believe we're going to get some tweets and stuff like that from him. Do we have tweets and stuff yet? Probably so. Yeah. If not yet, we'll get him pretty soon. But make sure you head over to Steve's Twitter. He's at SpaceCourse_STVE. Space Coast Steve without an E in there. Follow him on Twitter. Click the links in chat as well because they're putting the links for Steve into chat. And when he gets some photos, he's working on it, he says. He's working on it. He'll get some photos uploaded, and he was in a different location, so I am very looking forward to seeing his shots today. Last but not least, back from the NASA Spaceflight Control Center, which is just a spare bedroom in my house. My name is John Galloway for NASA Spaceflight, the guy who constantly talks a lot. A lot of fun being back on the broadcast today. I know I haven't been on as many broadcasts lately, but coming up here, hopefully in the new year, you'll be hearing my voice a little bit more on the commentary and stuff like that. But it's a pleasure being back again and being able to run my mouth on the internet as I tend to do. That is going to bring us to the end of the launch coverage here for the SpaceX Starlink launch. We're actually going to send you over to the live coverage from Starbase. We've got that 24/7 stream called Starbase Live, multiple cameras in the field out there at Starbase, and there are all sorts of operations happening. Looks like they're doing some work on the quick disconnect arm for Starship. So if you're a fan of Starship, go ahead and you'll see that video pop up, and we will see you nerds later. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
The chamber pressure looks good. Toggling up. Roger, roll, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight down, SE off. Bring in, SE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.